You're listening to Catholics in Ordinary Time. I'm your host, Father Jack Benz. Perhaps you've noticed in the press in the last 6 months that there's been a lot of trumpeting about the return to Catholic Mass. People are going back. There's a surge. While that's not quite true, it seems like that the downward trajectory of Mass attendance seems to be kind of leveling out, which I know doesn't make much of a headline, but it does just show kind of a trend or the change in a trend of people leaving and people maybe going back. And then I think people came to a lot of conclusions about that it's in younger people, that younger people are going back to Mass, which, may be somewhat true. And then within that, it was I think it's probably younger people that are looking for more traditional experience. Therefore, the surge is because everyone's going back to the traditional Latin Mass, or the traditional Latin Mass is booming. And again, it doesn't seem like the research really bears that out. But to be fair, research is really hard the data is hard to track down in these kind of categories. The Pew Research Center, which does wonderful work within worshiping communities in the U.S., did a research poll about a year ago and came up with the notion, well, it's more than a notion, a data point, about 2% of those Catholics who go to Mass every Sunday attend the traditional Latin Mass. And that seems kind of high. And other commentators really think that that is kind of high because that would be about somewhat over 1 million people going to the traditional Latin Mass every week. And it seems like better supported is a data point of about maybe 100,000 folks go to the traditional Latin Mass every week in the U.S., which is not an insignificant number of people. That's pretty large. But again, it's hard to get good information about this, and it's easy to just come to conclusions, not just in the press, but personally. I grew up in the church post-Reformed, and so I didn't have an experience of the Latin Mass. But what I did have was an experience of older people in my life, and then formators, people that were forming me in the Jesuits, that had distinct experience of being part of the Latin Mass, and then the changes in Vatican II when it was now available in the vernacular. And I think there was a certain amount of silhouetting of the folks that found the change more difficult or resistant to the change, or were really attached, understandably, to attending the Mass in Latin, which is what they had grown up in. And so I think there was kind of a tendency to characterize folks as kind of retrograde or kind of backwards, or they're doing it wrong, or why are they kind of ruining everything for the reforms, which is not terribly fair. And then obviously the leadership within the church had different opinions about it. And I'm talking about leadership from the top. So the papacy of Paul VI had one approach to this about how we're making the reforms broadly adapted. And then the papacy of JP2 was kind of a different situation. And was there more latitude or more margin for folks to continue the Latin Mass? And then Benedict, and then Francis, and different documents came out as well about that, either allowing, prohibiting, or allowing in a particular way. So it's been a place of great debate and sometimes really ugly conflict within who's doing Catholicism right. And within my own experience, I had questions. And so since I get to be on this podcast, I thought, well, what if I had conversations with younger families that are now going to the Latin Mass, and what's that experience like? And since I live here in Spokane, Washington, and then there's in northern Idaho, and here in the Diocese of Spokane, there's a population of folks that go to the traditional Latin Mass. There's also some kind of lingering confusion, understandably, I guess, about people that go to the traditional Latin Mass that is the extraordinary rite within the regular Catholic Church, or those that go to a Latin Mass in kind of an unreformed, schismatic sense. And we got them both around here. So people go to different churches like that. So I spoke to 3 men who are fathers of younger families who go to the Latin Mass. Their families are part of those communities. And I just asked them how it was going and why they went there and what they find there and what sustains them in the Latin Mass. And I found the conversations really interesting. So starting next week, we're going to be rolling out those 3 conversations over 3 weeks. And I hope you'll tune in to Catholics in Ordinary Time and see what we found in those conversations. Thanks again for listening. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing on Catholics at Ordinary Time, please tell other people and leave a review if possible, or give a star rating, that sort of thing. Again, thank you so much.